My dear students, uh, first introducing myself. My name is Dr.Arunava, Principal of Prabhavan Institute of Education. Uh, Today's I will discuss about the micro-teaching and simulated teaching or simulations. Uh, before starting my subject or topic, the student have to learn the following the learning area. These are the very important learning area I have the mentions here. Now first things you have to learn the concept and definition of micro teaching, objective of the micro teaching, characteristics of micro teaching, steps of micro teaching cycle, advantage of micro teaching and limitation of micro teaching, definition of simulated teaching, objective of simulated teaching, characteristic of simulated teaching, importance and limitation of the simulated teachings. Those students who are already have learned this area, they can learn again for their revision purpose, and those are not read this area have to learn this area very carefully, because it is a very effective for your examinations and also very effective to prepare a micro lesson plans. Now I am starting the today's topic is micro teaching. That is the concept of micro teaching. First things you have to learn what is the micro teaching. What is the meaning of the micro teachings? The micro teaching is a one type of skill of method. Skill of methods. The word micro came from the Greek word micros, which means very small. Micro teaching is one of the recent innovation in the field of education. The teacher can develop their skills through micro teachings. Therefore, the micro teaching very effective for teaching learning process, particularly for the teachers. So first things you have to learn the concept of the micro teachings. The micro teaching is a teacher training technique which helps the teacher trainee to master the teaching skills. That means when a teacher to practice the skills, they learn the different types of skills in a minimum of times in presence of minimum number of students. And it is not a real classroom based teaching, it is a skill based teaching method. Through this teachings, the teacher can develop their skills before they entering into the real classroom situation. That's why the teacher trainee required to teach a single concept of content using a specified teaching skill for a short time to a very small numbers of pupils, maybe 5 to 15 students, and time is maximum is 10 minutes. So what is the micro teachings? The micro teaching is a teacher training techniques by which helps the teacher trainees to master the teaching skills. It required to teach a single concept of a content. When the teachers practice their skills, they have to select one content or one subunit and practices different types of skills for a short time. That there is time is limited, maximum 10 minutes, and presence of small number of pupils or students. That is the concept of the micro teachings. So micro teaching is a teachers oriented teaching skill teachings. Again I repeated them. Through this micro teaching the teachers can develop their skill. Now we have learned the definitions. Many educationalists, they define the micro teaching according to their point of view. According to Allen D.W. 1996, micro teaching is a scaled down teaching encounter in class size and class time. There mention here class size. Which is class size? No, class size is not a area of a class. Is a class size means number of students or number of teacher trainee present in the classroom. That is means class size. And class time, that is specific time. Already I have mentioned there, the time is 5 to 10 minutes. The micro teaching is a scale down the teaching. Scale down, that is means when a teacher enter in the real classroom, they teach a unit or a subunit in a particular time. At that moment the teachers have to face different types of problems, because many numbers of students came from different types of environment, and they are the individually difference. In that situation, the teachers have to face difficulty. If a teacher they learn about the micro teaching skills, they scale down their teaching procedure or teaching process according to the student's response, according to student participations. That's why Allen D.W. defined micro teaching is a scale down teacher encounter in a class size and class time. D.W. Allen and A.W. Eve 1968, micro teaching defined as a system of control practice that makes it possible to concentrate on specified teaching behavior to practice teaching under controlled conditions. That means the conditions are the controlled, class size are controlled, and class timetable are controlled. LCC 1977, micro teaching is a scale down teaching encounter which the teacher teaches a small unit to a group of 5 pupils or small period 5 to 20 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes. Already I have discussed earlier that micro teaching is a teaching skills, one type of teaching skill. Through micro teaching, the teacher can develop their skills in presence of small number of students and specified class time. Okay. Next, so what is the objective of micro teachings? What are the? There are several objectives for the micro teachings. First things, to enable teacher trainee to learn and assimilate new teaching skill under the control conditions. Here the teachers have to face the defined types of skills in a under control condition, the conditional control. Remember it, the controlled condition is control, and teacher have to practices defined types of teaching skill, which I will discuss later, the defined of the teaching skills. To enable the teacher trainee to master a number of teaching skill. To enable the teacher trainee to master a number of teaching skill, they have to, through this teaching skill, when the teachers practices the defined types of teaching skill again and again, but they became a master for that teaching skills. With the help of that teaching skill, the teacher delivered his lesson in a real classroom very smoothly. That's why the micro teaching enable the teacher trainee to master a number of teaching skills. Next, to enable the teacher to trainee to gain the confidence in teaching. That is a very important objectives. To enable the teacher trainee to gain the confidence in teaching. When a teacher they practices the defined skills again and again, they learn defined types of teaching methods, defined types of teaching skills, how to utilize the teaching skill in real classroom situations, in adverse situations. That's why he gained a confidence and delivered his lessons in real classroom situations very smoothly. That's why last point is very important, to enable the teachers trainee to gain confidence in teaching. There are some characteristics of micro teachings I have mentioned here. Number 1, micro teaching is a highly individualized training device. Highly individualized training device. Here the teacher individually have to practices the defined types of teaching skills. Number 2, micro teaching is an experiment in the field of teacher education which has been incorporated in the practice teaching schedule. Micro teaching is an experiment in the field of teacher education. What is the experiment? Here the teachers, when the teacher teach the student but trainee students in a defined through the defined teaching skills, have to faces defined problems, and observer, remember it, the teacher trainee act as a 3 dimension, as a teacher, as a observer, as a student. So when a teacher teach their students or trainee teachers in a particular teaching skills, an observer observe his or her teaching. After he is completed a teaching, the observer note down his or her fault and give him immediate feedback. The teachers, after getting the feedback from the observer, he rectified his teaching skills, and again he teach the same skill. These are the continuous process until the teaching skills is perfect for the students. That's why microteaching is an experiment, because here the teachers experiment his teaching method, teaching skills. Number 3, it is a student teaching skill training technique and not a teaching technique or method. It is a student teaching skill training technique and not a teaching technique or method. Number 4, microteaching is a micro in the sense that is scale down the complexities in real teachings. Already I have discussed that when a teachers enter into the classroom, they have to face the defined types of complexity in the real classroom situation or the through teaching learning at the time of teaching learning process. If a teachers are known about the micro-teaching the skills, they easily scale down the complexity in a real situations. That is the very important characteristics of micro-teaching. And micro-teaching practices one skill at a time. There are several types of micro-teaching skills. The teacher have to choose one skill at a time and have to practices in a practices. Next number, reducing the class size to 5 to 10 pupils. Already I have mentioned the class size are small because the maximum 10 student or 5 to 10 student or 15 student can participate the micro teaching skills, as well as reducing the duration the lesson 5 to 10 times, and already reducing the duration the lessons 5 to 10 minutes. Okay. Next characteristics. Immediate feedback helps the improve the fixing and motivating learning. Already I have discussed the teachers are act as three characteristics. They have a 3 characteristics: as a teacher, as a student, and as an observer. When a teacher practices that there any type of teaching skill, the observer observe the teacher teaching skills, and after complete her teaching skill, the observer immediate give him to feedback. After getting the feedback, the teachers rectified his problems, his weakness immediately. That's why micro-teaching helps immediate feedback to help the improve him the fixation and motivate the learning. Next, the students are providing immediate feedback in terms of peer group feedback, tape recorder, and CCTV. Micro-teaching advocates the choice and practices of one skill at a time. These are the characteristics of micro-teaching. Steps of micro-teachings. There are the several steps involved in micro-teaching program. First step, the particular skill to be practiced in explained to the teacher trainee in terms of the purpose and components of the skill with a suitable examples. First point, particular skill to be practiced. The teacher have to take in or have to choose a particular skill. Number 2, the teacher trainee gives the demonstration of the skill, and the teacher have to demonstration that skill which he have taken for teaching. Step number 3, the teacher trainee plans a short lesson plan. Number 1, the teachers choose a teaching skill. Step number 1. Step number 2, he is ready to demonstrate that particular skills which he has taken. Number 3, the teacher have to prepare a lesson plan on the basis of their skill and demonstrate. Number 4, the teacher trainee teach the lesson in a small group. Then the teacher delivered his teaching skill in front of small number of students at the presence of supervisor and peers. Number 5, on the basis of observation of a lesson, the supervisor gives a feedback. After complete his teaching skill, the supervisor immediately give him the feedback. Number 6, after getting the feedback or in light of the feedback given by the supervisor, the teacher trainee rectified his weak point and again he demonstrated that particular skill as a second trial. Number 7, the revised lesson is taught to another comparable group of the pupils. Step number 8, the supervisor observes the reteach lesson and gives re-feedback. Again the supervisor gives him the re-feedback. With convincing argument and reasons. Step number 9, the reteach cycle to be prepared several times till adequate master level is achieved. This process is going to continue a circular way. Teach, reteach, plan, replan, feedback, re-feedback. This process is going to until the teacher get the mastery level achieved. These are the steps of the micro-teaching lesson plan. It's a very, very important things you have to learn. So what are the steps for the micro-teaching? It's a very important question for your upcoming examination, particular BA second semester students. Now, here I mention the micro-teaching cycle. There are six steps generally involved in micro-teaching cycle. There are plan, First things, the teacher have to prepare a plan, then he have to demonstrate or teach at the presence of supervisor or peer. After complete his teaching, the supervisor gives him immediate feedback. After getting the supervisor feedback, the teacher rectified his lessons, rectified his teaching skill, then he replan and have to practice once again. That is called reteach. Again, the supervisor give him re-feedback. These process are going to in a circular way. That's why it is called a micro-teaching cycle. Okay. Now I have demonstrate for the students just a diagram, plan, teach, feedback, replan, retake and re-feedback. These processes are continuously going to in a circular way. That's why it is called a micro-teaching cycle. Have you got it? Now, next things. Wait. Now I am discussing about the merits or advantage of micro-teaching. Why the micro-teaching are important for teaching learning process? Because micro-teaching helps to develop the teaching skills. Number 2, it helps the teacher to specific teaching competencies. Number 4 or 3, it creates the needs of individual difference in the teacher training. It's more effective in modifying teacher behavior. Third, through the teaching skill, the teacher can change their behavior. It is individualist training technique. Individualist training technique, already I have the mentions, because each teacher have to prepare a lesson plan, have to prepare a demonstration and have to teach individually. That's why it is a individual training technique. Every teacher have to perform these skills. It employs real teaching situation for developing these skills. When the teachers have to face the real situation, like the real classroom situation, his past experience or his teaching skill experience, he can develop their skills. It reduces the complexity of the teaching process and is a scaled down teaching. when a teacher face any complexity in real classroom situation, the teacher scale down his teaching and solve the complexity very smoothly, very effective way. Last point, it helps to get deeper knowledge regarding the art of teaching. Through this teaching skill, the teacher acquired the art of teaching skills. Now, there are some limitations of micro-teachings. Limitations of micro-teachings. Already I have mentioned when the teaching learning process is going, particular in a micro-teaching, when the teachers are practicing their teaching skill in presence of observer or peer group. But nowadays, the skilled observer are not available. If the observer are not able to give the proper feedback to the teacher cannot develop their teaching skill. That is a very important things. A large number of trainee cannot given the opportunity for reteaching and replanning. When the class size is bigger than normal, it is quite impossible to practice the micro-teaching skill, and also impossible for reteaching and replanning. Micro-teaching also time-consuming technique, because the teacher have to teach in a particular skill again and again until the teacher can get the mastery level of that skill. Therefore, it is a time consuming. Limitation. The special classroom are required for micro-teaching skill. For a point, it covers only few specific skills. There are several micro-teaching skills, but according to our syllabus, we have to practice a small number of teaching skills. That's why the teacher are known to the teaching skill which are mentioned in our curriculum, and they are unable to get the information, the other teaching skills which are not included our the syllabus or curriculum. That's why here mentioned here, it covers only a few specific skills. Next point, it deviates from the normal classroom teaching. It may raise the administrative problem while arranging the micro lessons. These are the administrative problems. So these are the limitation of micro teaching. Now already we have learned about the micro teaching. So just summarize the micro teaching. Once again I repeat the micro teaching is a skill-based teaching method. The word micro came from the Greek word micros, which means very small micro teaching. And micro teaching is a recent innovation in the field of education. Through this micro teaching, the teacher can develop their skills at the presence of supervisor or peers. After and the teacher get the immediate feedback from his supervisor or peers and replan his micro lesson plan and rectified his teaching skills until they reach the mastery level about that teaching skills. And its micro teaching is a very important in a teaching learning process because it scales down the teaching and when he arises the complexity or face the complexity in the real classroom situation, through micro teaching skill experience, the teacher can solve the problem immediately. There are some already I have discussed. There are several steps of the micro teaching. That is the first thing. The teacher have to prepare a plan. Number 2, they have to prepare a demonstration. Number 3, he prepare a lesson plan, short lesson plan. Number 4, he teach their skill in presence of small number of students, observer and peers. After his teaching skill, the observer immediately give him a feedback. After getting the feedback, the teacher rectified his lesson, rectified his skill. Then the revised lesson is taught to another comparable group of students. The supervisor observes the retake the lesson and gives the feedback to the teacher trainee with the convincing argument and reasons. Last point, the teach, reteach cycle may be repeated several times till adequate mastery level is achieved. And these micro teachings, there are 6 components: plan, teach, feedback, replan, retake and reteach and refeedback. These components are going to a circular way that is called micro teaching cycle. There are several advantages or merits for micro-teachings. Develop the teaching skills, specify the teacher competencies, individually the teaching technique. It helps to get the deeper knowledge regarding the art of teaching, as well as the micro-teaching has some limitations. It is a time consuming, requires special classroom setting. It covers only a few specific skills. Okay. Now I am going to start about the simulated teaching. First things, you have to know what is simulation. A simulation is referred to the imitation of real world activities and process. I repeat, simulation refers to the limitation of real world activities and process in a safe environment. Suppose when a candidate going to interview in any kind of government service such as school service commission, college service commissions, some experts are take the interview before the face of the real situation, and the expert create a such environment which that candidate have to face in a real situation. That is also the example of simulations. The simulations refer to the limitation of real world activities and process in a safe environment. Simulation aims to provide an experience as close to real thing as possible. Simulation is a teaching recently entered into the field of education. It is used at defined level of instructions. The teacher trained particularly and also the imparted theoretical learning. The student teacher needs to be trained in a simulated situation before sending him in the school for practice teaching. In this way, he will be able to teach in good manner. Most of institutions take the demonstration before the students going to the school. They create in such a classroom environment, and the student teach that student. That's the students. The teacher training teach the students. That is also called a simulated teaching. Some definitions are provided some educationalists according to when the simulation is an accurate representation of a realistic situations. Kurik Sainik defined the simulation as the creation of realistic games to be played by participants in order to provide them with lifelike problem-solving experience and related to their present or future work. According to Frink, simulation is a controlled representation of reality. So what is the objective of the simulated teaching? The simulated teaching have some objectives to modify the social communication skills, to modify the teacher's behavior, to modify the teaching skills, to modify the or to develop the handling the problems in the class. These are the objective of the simulated teachings. Some characteristics in a simulated teaching are mentioned here. It provides a setting in which a student can function. Simulated teaching implies an analysis of teaching act and of the teaching situation from the point of view of the student. It delivers a message without modifying the physical or psychological learning climate. The simulation system informs the student what would have happened and he responded in the simulated situation. It depends upon the empathic, the understanding of the reality content on the part of participant and practicing the teachers. That means the simulated teaching create an environment where the student can function properly. Simulated teaching modify the student to develop their psychological learning climate. And simulated teaching, or through this simulation, teacher can develop their teaching skills. These are some characteristics I have mentioned here. Now some importance for this are mentioned for simulated teaching. What are the importance? Why simulated teaching are important in our educational system? Simulated teaching makes a bridge between the theoretical and practical work. It also provides the opportunity to solve the problem during the real classroom situation. Simulated teaching helps to the classroom interactions. Through the simulated teaching, the teacher can develop their teaching method and also make the confidence to the teacher or teacher training. Limitation of simulated teaching. There also have some limitation. Simulated teaching not always able to completely recreate real life situations. It is not utilize the always time and always create the real situations. It's also very expensive and required more time. Not every can be included. The result and feedback are only as effective the actual training provided. If the supervisor is not a proper trained, the simulated teachings cannot be appropriate. Now, already we have discussed about the micro teaching and simulated teaching. Next class, I will be discussed micro teaching through simulation mode, and how to prepare a micro teaching skills in a micro teaching lesson plan or micro lesson plan in a particular skills. Those skills are included our curriculum. So my dear student, I hope you can understand the micro teaching and simulated teaching. If any problem, you have to contact with me. I will give you some more information. My request to all of my students, study the micro teaching and simulated teaching, because it is a very important. Many questions came in previous year in your exam. I hope every student can read it properly. Thank you.